welcome to Resilient Retail. I am so excited to have you on. For the listeners, I gotta say, this happens in podcasting, and it's 2020, so I'm happy to talk to you again. This is our second try at recording this because tech failed us. Maybe Mercury was in retrograde first time or something. I don't know, but
it's quite possible.
Yes, I am so happy to have you back because I know we're going to have another wonderful conversation.
Well, I'm delighted to have another wonderful conversation with you, Kristen.
Well, thank you. Can you start off telling us about yourself and about Universal Standard and the brand and what you guys do?
So, my name is Alex, and I am the co-founder, along with my friend Paulina Wexler, and I'm the creative director of Universal Standard, which is a women's apparel brand that is kind of elevated essentials. It's very sort of feminine minimalism, the kind of clothes that you live in. And one of the things that makes us special is that we offer every single thing in every single size, and we have the broadest size range in the world, which is 00 to an American size 40, which, in case you're wondering what 40 means, because I've actually had women ask me what that means, that if you're a size 12 or a size 14, or maybe you're a size 20, 22, maybe you're a size 30, 32, well, we go all the way up to 40. So it's the most comprehensive size range in an apparel brand that offers absolutely everything we make in the full size range.
Yeah. And I love this. And immediately, I think you guys sometimes get put into the category of you're an inclusive brand and you're a plus size brand or something like that. But that's not really the case of what you're doing. You're actually just trying to say all sizes are good sizes and they're all great. And we should just be able to provide that for everybody. Can you talk about that mission a little bit?
Yeah, we don't have an opinion about your size. It's neither good nor bad. It's just your size. And I think as an apparel brand, it's our job to make sure that you can come to our e-store or our physical space and try on and buy whatever you like. And I think that is the way fashion should always have been, and that this is the future of fashion.
Yeah.
And we just kind of, find ourselves at the point of that spear. So it's much closer to inclusive than it is to plus. It's certainly not plus size fashion. And people do tend to sort of pigeonhole you as one or the other, especially if you go beyond, a size 14. But the fact is that 70% of American women, which is about 115 million women in the United States alone, are above a size 14.
Yeah.
So not to include them, if you are an apparel business, is just completely insane.
Yeah. And that's kind of the standard in fashion, though, right? It's not actually, even inclusive brands aren't necessarily inclusive to every single size on the spectrum, like you're saying. What was take me back to kind of the origin of Universal Standard. What happened? Did you have a personal experience between you and your co-founder where something went, whoa, this is a place that needs to really be reformed and women need help in this certain area?
Well, I've lived in that mind space for my entire adult life. I live in a bigger body, and I was a professional fashion journalist and fashion editor for a national newspaper. And I was privy to, capital F fashion, knowing full well that I was not allowed to participate in it. And it's funny, but you buy into it yourself. And you start to think, well, yeah, I mean, the reason I don't get to participate, it's my fault because I have a bigger body. And the fact is that if you can't find something that fits you, it's not your fault. It's the fault of the apparel industry who doesn't see you. And that's why the apparel industry is suffering so much. So yes, I mean, for my entire adult life, I was like, and thinking, man, would I love to change this. But it wasn't until I became friends with Paulina here in New York. And we had both moved to New York from living abroad for many years. We didn't know a lot of people. We were connected through mutual acquaintances. And we were meant to go to an event. And as the event got closer, I said, you know what, I'm not going to go. And she said, why? And I said, because I just have nothing to wear. And she looked at me like I had two heads. And she said, let's go get you something to wear. You live a couple of blocks from Fifth Avenue. Let's, you know. And then it was my turn to look at her like she had two heads. And I said, I'm sorry, but do you know that there isn't a single store on all of Fifth Avenue that I can walk into and buy myself something to wear?
Yeah.
And I think that's when the penny dropped. And she was like, what the hell are you talking about? Because she's a size 6 woman.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't even know there's a problem.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're like 70% of American women have been living behind this veil. And they just have not been seen and they have not been represented. So they're effectively invisible. You know, so when you walk down the streets and when you look at the mannequins through the windows and when you look at the magazines or even the shows, you do not see women who are of any size bigger than, I mean, it's a very rare thing.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It's an
Yeah.
extreme anomaly. And they're usually playing the character of like the comic relief or, you know, the funny best friend or some other kind of othered character. And it's certainly not an aspirational character.
Yeah.
You're certainly not looking at them going, gosh, that's me. I wish I was like that. So, for all intents and purposes, we don't exist to the fashion industry. And, you know, it's so incongruent with reality that it actually has a huge effect on the business side of things. As we know, the apparel industry has been hobbling along for a very long time. And that's what happens when you ignore 70% of your customer base.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking like on a personal feeling and like visceral feeling I get when I think about universal standard, and even just in the name itself, universal standard, is this idea that, you know, no matter what size you are, there shouldn't be some image of perfection, even if you're a size 6 or size 8 or size 40. It's just, that is you and that is beautiful. And that I think is something that is a totally new idea in the world. Unfortunately, a very new idea that, you know, we've all kind of been sold that the only way to be healthy is to be thin, when that's not actually, you know, necessarily always the truth. I grew up as an elite gymnast. And so I was always put into this, you know, your body must look like this. And I happened to be lucky that my body kind of fell into that prepackaged situation. But then as I become an adult and I'm no longer training 40 hours a week and killing my body and trying to become this perfect thing, I've had to go through the personal adjustment of, if I'm 10 pounds heavier, 20 pounds heavier than I was in college, that's actually probably a good thing. And that's still healthy. And my, you know, I had to rebuy all of my jeans throughout quarantine because I gained weight like everybody else did. But it's, I feel like you guys are trying to change this larger mission and this larger conversation of that's okay. And like, that's still beautiful. And you still deserve to find clothes that make you feel beautiful and powerful, because size doesn't matter. There is no standard. It's just a universal standard of, you as you are can show up and be here and be respected and be loved and be beautiful.
It's actually even more pared down than that, if I may.
Yeah.
Like, we're an apparel brand. We're not here to make you feel any particular way about your body. That's a personal journey.
Yeah.
How you feel about your body is your business. And I don't think any brand has the right to hijack that and sort of try to sell frocks based on, you know, how supportive they are of who you are at the moment or who you will be in, you know, in 14 days, whatever that is your personal journey. Our job as an apparel brand is to make clothes that fit women. That's where it ends and that's where it should end.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that any brand that tries to sort of beat that drum of, you're beautiful at any size. Yeah, you know, but that's not our concern.
Yeah.
We're not, you know, here to tell you how to feel. We're here to facilitate a certain dignity that will hopefully lead to whatever it leads to with you. But the dignity of being able to walk into a store and feel that you have been seen and that you are being catered to just as everyone else is a relatively rare thing.
Yeah.
And when you look at the statistics, 30% of American women have all the choices in the world. And the rest of us are buying scented candles in those lovely boutiques because there's no point in even crossing the threshold otherwise, So, it's really kind of gut wrenching, and it's really, it's made many a woman shed a hot tear. And it needs to change just out of the most pragmatic, simple reasons. It has an emotional component to it.
Yeah.
But I think the way we make things better is just to look at it in a pragmatic way. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense on every level to cater to women who want the clothes that you're going to make for them.
Yes.
So it's as simple as that. And it's really not about, us telling you how to live your life or how you should feel good if you look like this or if you look like that.
Yeah. You should just have the power and accessibility to find clothes that fit your body. As simple as that.
and feel like you are being given the dignity that you deserve as an individual.
Yeah.
That's it. Everything else kind of organically follows.
Yeah. And so with this, it feels, I feel like as we're talking, for a lot of people, they might be saying like, this just seems like a no-brainer. Like this should be the way it is, but it really isn't. And you are trying to change the narrative, an entire massive industry that's been doing things a certain way for a very long time. So obviously there's got to be a lot of ups and downs with that. What's been, the hardest part of this journey with building a brand like this, but also conversely, the best part of the journey?
It's a hard journey, I won't lie. Starting any business is relatively easy. Mm-hmm. Scaling that business, making sure that you're really creating something that needs to exist, that there's an audience that needs this thing that you're making, that there's somewhere to grow with the business that you have. Yeah. Those are all sort of much more complicated things than having an idea, making a few things and, getting a few fans.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it is difficult. I think it was a little bit easier for us because we felt so passionately and so strongly about this. This was a personal journey for me. We just knew that the reason that this didn't exist in the world, which seems to be, as you say, such a no-brainer, is that there is this enormous calcified prejudice against certain bodies. Mm-hmm. And that has been cultivated over decades and decades and decades of exclusivity. Yeah. And so, people started to refer to anything that goes beyond a size 12 or 14 as inclusive. But, even inclusive, the concept of inclusive
must have been exclusive before. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, is going to a size 16 inclusive? Well, it isn't for anybody who's over that size. It is going to size 20 and exclusive, and so on and so on. So it winds up being a very tricky thing because people obviously see the potential of custom from that consumer, but they also are afraid of being seen as catering to a particular body type that is less valued, let's say, in terms of beauty. There's a huge emotional, psychological, financial mess that has caused us to be where we are. And untangling it is, what we're trying to do right now. And it's interesting that you say what's been the hardest and what's been the best, because the hardest thing was moving into this without knowing anything about manufacturing or the apparel industry at all. Like neither Paulina nor I knew anything about it. But at the same time, it really behooved us because we had no laurels to rest on. We did not rely on any sort of staid and stale ideas of how certain body types should be treated versus other body types. So we kind of just reinvented everything from scratch. And a lot of the time to industry experts coming to us and saying, you can't do that. What are you doing? That's crazy. And yet it worked. It worked because it was time for a change. And we also made a very concerted effort, a very public effort to work with other brands in order to proliferate this idea. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, I am so amazed by all of this work that you guys are doing, because I feel like it's so important for every single woman who's ever, no matter what size, gone into a fitting room, put on something, and then kind of started crying because you just feel like, can't find anything that fits my body. And I think that is an experience that every single woman has probably gone through, and honestly, a lot of men too, and just trying to recreate that and build it so it becomes an inclusive thing, because you're saying everybody is worthy of these beautiful and incredible clothes, and you decide how they make you feel, but at least you have access to what you didn't have before.
Well, that's just it. It's spot on. So it's not really inclusive. It's not about inclusion. It's about equality.
Yeah.
And when you say that, it rings a slightly different bell.
Yeah.
It hits differently. So this sort of like, we get this and all y'all can just like eat cake.
Yeah.
Who cares, right? I call it the Marie Antoinette approach. But really, it is about access, because clothes are very meaningful. Not only are they the armor that we wear out into the world, they have cultural significance.
Yeah.
So we had a woman come in who was 38 years old, and she had never in her life worn a pair of jeans.
Wow.
And when she put on a pair of jeans and she came out and she saw herself in the mirror in these jeans, she just completely broke down.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because she had denim on her legs.
Yeah.
It was because jeans are a cultural icon. And by not being allowed to participate in this staple, of cultural apparel, she was being excluded quietly, but constantly.
Yeah.
And she felt it as soon as she wore those jeans, and she just broke down.
Yeah.
So it's enormously important to, like I keep saying the word dignity, but that's what it is. It's dignity.
Yeah.
It's giving individuals dignity and allowing them to fight their battles on a more level playing field.
Yeah. So now I want to get into the retail aspect of it, because I find this really interesting. There is this trend of direct to consumer companies going into retail. And, when D2C was kind of booming in the golden era, people were saying like, we are anti-retail. Like, that's the whole thing with D2C, is you don't even have to go through somebody. You don't have to go through retail. And then now you've seen like a lot of D2C brands going like, oh yeah, but retail is really cool. You guys, from the get-go, I mean, year 2 of your business, you decide we're going to get into retail. We're going to open up showrooms. We're going to go this route. Why even go physical at all that early? What was it that you thought was so needed when you really, you could have stayed all online, but you made this conscious strategic decision to go into showroom kind of retail?
Well, I think it's important to, first of all, recognize the fact that we didn't go into traditional retail. We dabbled, we dipped our toes. We wanted to see, the reaction of the customer. We always knew that a physical space, an IRL space, is important because it allows you to interact with your consumer in a completely different way. And we didn't want to lose that humanity. It's incredibly important for us to personally experience, the good and the bad, so that we can constantly adjust and become better.
Yeah.
But we also knew that the idea of walking into a store with a bunch of racks where, you're waiting for the change room, or somebody's like, talking on the phone when they should be helping, like all of that needed to change.
Yeah.
And we decided that we wanted to create a much more personal experience, and that also was more of a future of fashion. And as it turns out, with this whole COVID thing, it sort of seems to be the right direction. So we created a space where you were one-on-one with a stylist. You made an appointment, or even if you dropped in, it was not on street level. it was very much your space as you entered it. The stylist, if they already know you and have a profile, this is somebody who you establish a relationship with, who knows what you like, what you don't like, who will call you when something goes on sale or when something that you've been coveting has come in your size. This is also someone who will bring you something to try that you would never consider. I can't tell you how many people walked into the space, interacted with our stylist, and walked out going, I never in a million years thought I would buy this. It looks so good. So the stylist is not a salesperson. They are on your side.
Got it. Yeah.
They're not there to sell you stuff. They are there to establish a relationship and make this journey much easier for you. And to constantly improve that journey. So our showrooms are set up like apartments. You walk in, you get a glass of Prosecco or a coffee, or a glass of whiskey if you want. And they're really beautiful, and there are books, and there are lovely change rooms, and you can walk around and you can sort of breathe and feel what it would look like to live in these clothes. And you know that this person who is helping you is completely and entirely on your side, and will say, that's a little too small, or that's not your color, or, they will just as easily say that as, oh my gosh, that looks amazing on you. They're not there to sell you something. They're there to make sure that you look your best.
Thing about, it feels like just the antithesis of every normal shopping mall experience that I went through as, a young teenager, a young adult, and now into adulthood. And like you mentioned, it's this experience of almost loneliness a lot of times when you go shopping. Like, you're trying to find something, you're really not even sure. If you want to go through like a style change, heaven forbid you go to a mall, like, how do you even begin to do that? And then, you're waiting. And I think there's this argument that's been made that you guys are arguing against, which was, with online, with e-commerce, there's instant gratification. With Amazon Prime, there's instant gratification. There's 1-2 day gratification. And what this is saying is, actually, we're going to take this a lot slower than instant gratification. Yes, you get it, but then also they're not buying the clothes right in there. Like you're saying, it's not a sales situation that then you go buy the clothes online, they're shipped to you. You're not walking out with it. Is it because that experience is what's been lacking, or how do you balance that need for instant gratification, but also slowing down and actually changing the experience in those showrooms?
Well, I think that you should have access to both. Why on earth not? Once you understand what your favorite fit is and how the clothes feel, and you understand what the description is because you've maybe felt it, you can go back to that instant gratification and just shop right online, no matter where you are. I think there's a lot of value to that, especially to people who don't live close to city centers. But there's also this, this herd mentality that you have in a mall or in those kind of big stores. You just feel part of a herd. Yeah. And, we really wanted to change that experience and make it feel much more like we're here to help you with whatever you need, whatever you want, and you're going to walk out of here and you're going to feel really great about the pieces that you got. And now, now that you know how they fit, and now that you know what they're made of, and now that you know the engineering behind them, the construction behind them, the micro grading and all those other things that we put into the development of the clothing, now you should feel much more confident to sit down in front of your computer and choose what you like visually.
Yeah. It sounds to me like what you've done is, instead of thinking about retail as one channel for sales and e-commerce as a totally different channel, is you're actually seeing it as it's all one experience that really works together to obviously lead to a conversion, but a much better conversion than maybe you would just get separately.
Yeah, it's cake and icing, and it is part of the same thing. There are people who we now have this like try before you buy, so that it's easier for people to pay nothing, get a whole bunch of stuff, and then say, this fits me, this is not my thing, and just send back the stuff, that they don't like, and leave just the things that they like and purchase just those things. We really wanted to create an experience that allowed the sort of living room as your dressing room, you know, in a much more palpable way, in a way that felt much more informed. This is why we photograph on every size woman that we carry. You know, and you can see what it looks like on a size 40, just like you can see what it looks like on a size 4. We're trying to create this interface experience, this direct-to-consumer interface experience that is augmented by the showrooms, just to make it much more holistic and much more sort of understandable in general.
Yeah. So what do you see? Like, who do you encounter in the showroom? Is it usually people who are discovering the brand for the first time? Is it loyal fans who are coming in again and again? A mix of both? What kind of consumer are you really seeing coming into those showrooms?
There's a little bit of everything. It tends to be people who have bought from us many times and have come into the store a couple of times, tend to buy online after that because they just know the product so well and they understand the fit so well.
Yeah.
So most of the people who come in, we've had some amazing experiences because we will have groups of, you know, friends coming in together, and it doesn't matter what size you are, you can all try things on, which is, you know, I mean, I remember sitting outside dressing rooms with my friends and holding bags while they tried on lovely things. You know, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So we sort of try to create an atmosphere where you can really enjoy a day with the girls, and, you know, and everyone feels respected and everyone feels that they have something to keep them, you know, occupied and interested. And, you know, our showrooms are also pre-COVID were given to our customers for free for their own private events.
Wow.
So we really created a community around them. And it didn't matter whether you were celebrating your grandmother's 80th birthday or whether it was your, you know, book club or whether it was, you know, whatever it was, you could actually just book the space because they're beautiful spaces and then come in and use it for free and, you know, and have this little hub, this pied-à-terre, you know, in the center of the heart of the city.
Yeah. I as you're talking, I just like immediately was taken back to an experience that I'm guessing is one that happens a lot when you're talking about, like, you're trying on stuff with your girlfriends and you're all having that experience. You know, I have both been a bride, so I've gone through that. Like, it feels kind of like going wedding dress shopping where someone is there specifically to help you find what makes you feel a certain way that fits the way you want, that you love, and you get to do that back and forth. And like, my experience with that was fantastic. But then also, you know, bridesmaids dress trying on. And there's even like movies about it where there's that one moment where something doesn't fit one girl, that they don't have the right size, or they're going to have to do this and this. And it becomes very isolating in those situations. And it sounds like
I think it's the opposite. I disagree with you. I think in movies, somehow miraculously, the Melissa McCarthy character gets to walk into that wedding store and buy exactly the same thing as all the other skinny girls. I'm like, that's not reality. This is not how it actually works. Someone is always left out. Yeah. And, you know, the fact that they try to augment that reality is very interesting because nobody wants to face that.
Yeah. And that's what I love about the strategy behind these showrooms is that, and combined with the sizing and all the stuff that you're doing, is you've created a space where, you know, one person goes into the showroom and they're getting such a fantastic brand experience that it's going to lead to a much more loyal customer. But then also, if you can share that with your friends and go in and just know that that's going to be an accessible place for all of your friends to find something that at least fits, and you get that positive experience, I can't even imagine what that does for brand loyalty with those people who come into the store.
We have very loyal clients. Our brand loyalty and repeat purchase rate is through the roof.
Yeah.
So we know that has an effect. We know that you know, there is an experience in interacting with the brand that encourages a lot of loyalty, just because of what it is. So you're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about, a lot of digital campaigns you guys have done have been really incredible. And I think for people who are going into e-commerce for the first time, creating some sort of online campaign can be really overwhelming and stressful. And a lot of times they can go two ways. I feel like a lot of brands can follow a playbook and do a very simple thing and it'll work so much so, but it kind of feels like a template. But then you could do these really, really thoughtful campaigns that cater directly towards your customers. And I think you guys are really good at this. Campaigns this year, like Vote With Us. You also made a children's book this year. Can you talk a little bit about those campaigns and how you think through what to serve your customers outside of the products themselves?
We have an amazing group of people who work with us. Our colleagues are all really hardworking and smart and passionate and devoted. And we ourselves are customers of the brand. Mm-hmm. And we understand what appeals, what doesn't appeal. So we're the first and the last filter for everything. And, we have a very strong feeling about giving back, about being relevant beyond the apparel itself, about taking a stand, and about supporting various groups. As a brand, our slogan is all of us as we are, which means, not just size, but race and gender and age and whatever it is, ability, we want to feature all of us as we are. Mm-hmm. And when you have that sort of, that hat on, when that is what you're steeped in every day, you come up with some interesting ideas to tell that story and who you want to tell that story to and how you want to tell that story. So we've been very fortunate in our group of colleagues who have done an amazing job of coming up with ideas and really sort of trying to proliferate this message so that we are literally building the new normal.
What it sounds like to me is, the products are not the only thing that's going on. You're selling something so much bigger than just pieces of clothing. And you're able to focus on that, which then again creates this community, creates that connection, and then creates people to talk about it and go to the showroom and all of this stuff because you're coming down to something that is so much bigger than just the pieces of clothing. One campaign I want to talk about because I find it so interesting is you guys launched a children's storybook this year and then partnered with Airbnb to do these virtual experiences where they were, reading the book to kids. And immediately, from a very strategic marketing brain, you've got this entire event, you've got this entire expense specifically catering to a demographic that literally cannot buy your product. And so from that direct return on interest, you're saying, why are you servicing, young children with a children's book and taking all this time to do that? Can you tell us a little bit about that campaign?
Well, we just believe, in the whole idea of the holistic sort of buy-in. We want to, fashion is about culture, mm-hmm. And if you don't change culture, you're not going to make any changes in anything. And we believe that, planting those seeds early, those seeds of welcoming, of embracing diversity, of, respecting all kinds of people, all kinds of bodies, is very, very important. And that generation is going to come up very soon. Mm-hmm. They seem little now, but they're not so, in a few years, you're going to be turning around and saying, wow, these people are really affecting how we think about everything. We can no longer afford to think of ourselves, as brands in a very siloed way. You have to have an opinion. As far as we're concerned, you have to care about whether it's the environment or, a woman's rights to health care or whatever it is. we have a much bigger stamp than, hey, do you want to buy this pair of pants?
Yeah.
Simply because we can. And I think that, 2020, if it's proved anything, it's proved that things can be really tough.
Yeah.
And that you need to make changes in order to improve things, and that we can be an agent of change towards the better. So we really live by that.
Love that. Now, you're so well spoken, and you have such incredible ideas, both retail and e-commerce. And I know a lot of people who are listening right now are, single entrepreneurs who are going through this muck of 2020, who is scared, struggling, trying to understand e-commerce and retail and what this new normal looks like, and are probably kind of looking for some inspiration. To that person, what would your advice be for the next, 6 months, year, whatever, tomorrow, next minute? What advice would you give them right now?
Get used to that discomfort that you're feeling right now, because you're going to be feeling it for a very long time. And that's not it's not a negative thing. It's really just kind of saying, look, this is what growth and thinking outside the box and bringing something into being that needs to be there. This is what it feels like. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. You will lose sleep. Mm-hmm. But you will also work with amazing people who understand what you're doing and who will come and help you by pulling in the same direction. And that's when you start to see amazing things happen. So, it's scary. It's hard, but it's doable. And I think if you do it right, the reward for it is much more than, your basic, invoice or spreadsheet, that says you've made X amount. You actually have the power to be meaningful beyond just your clothes.
Love that advice so much, because I think it's also highlights this beacon of hope of, with everything that's happened in 2020, especially for retailers having to close their doors, having to figure this all out. I think it's just this message of, as tough as it is, this is also an opportunity to do something bigger.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. That's when you know you have an opportunity, is when it's really, really tough. Because if it was easy to do, everybody would be doing it.
Now, I think this just rolls me right into the last question today so perfectly, which is, what does resilience mean to you?
Oh gosh, putting one foot in front of the other, having people around you that you can trust, and that you can lean on, and for whom you can be a shoulder when needed. Always pushing into the same place so that you actually get through. Understanding that there is a place for what you're creating in the world, because there are people who really need it. And just being a human being, just perception, reception, kindness, opening your eyes, and, opening your mind to what can be, and just a continuation of doing that on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's what resilience really is.
Thank you so much, Alex, for today. Thank you for coming back for a second recording. Again, I am walking away just so full of inspiration and hope. And I think you guys are doing something that is just raising the tide for all ships right now. And it's so important. And I know there are women and men out there who are going to be listening and just feeling this in their heart, feeling so thankful for the work you're doing. I think it's truly the epitome of resilience. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. That's very kind. Thank you.